Welcome to Ideagen TV. Today we are thrilled to have with us Sheryl Kline, a mental toughness and certified high-performance coach, best-selling author, speaker, moderator, and mother of 3 great adult kids. She's also the CEO and founder of the Zone Lab, LLC, and her area of expertise is mental toughness and high performance. Sheryl, welcome.
Thanks so much, George. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Wow, Sheryl, no pressure, but my gosh, high performance, mental toughness. What a time to be having this conversation after the incredible global headwinds that the planet encountered in 2020. And I believe, I'm optimistic that we are now seeing the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm the ever optimist, so I would agree with you for sure. And this crazy time I'm just one of those strange and fortunate businesses that it's just maybe a little even more popular. So I'm just glad to step in and help wherever I can.
Well, Sheryl, knowing you, we're friends, and I know the impact that you're having on so many countless individuals across the planet with all of your incredible work. I'd love for you, if you could, to share with our global audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. Well, I'm just going to keep it simple. I'm really in the business of unlocking potential in individuals and teams so they can be sustainable high performers and ultimately agents of change. And that's the short version.
My gosh, helping people to become agents of change. And, at Ideagen, we're all about connecting the dots globally to help to achieve the global goals of the United Nations. And so we just came off, as we discussed earlier, the incredible headwinds of 2020. We're in 2021. We're talking about leadership. Sheryl, what does true leadership mean to you?
Well, what true leadership means to me, and especially what I've seen, after working with so many Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies and some of the biggest titans in business here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, or worldwide, what I've seen is leadership now is different, I believe, in my opinion, than it has been. And what leadership means to me right now, it really means love. And that might be a little unusual, catch you by surprise, but I really think that if we can develop real, true love and caring for our people, then it's just been proven in the last 40 years plus of human performance research that if you can create this kinship and this love for your people, they will go to the end of the earth for you and move mountains. And that's what's going to be required now in business. And also for your customers, love is important for them as well now, because business is not transactional anymore. It's relationship, and people need to understand and know that you love and care for them. So leadership to me really means love. It's also about courage to do the right thing.
What incredible perspective, Sheryl, always from you, always incredible perspective. And, to be frank, you have a very unique vantage point. So you're helping leaders become better leaders and higher performers. And so what is it like being a mental toughness and certified high performance coach? What does that mean?
Well, what it means, the curriculum and the system that I have does not change, but what changes is how I deliver it. So what it's like, to answer your question, is I go shoulder to shoulder with, like I said, some of the biggest business, most influential business folks here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and worldwide. I'm also aligned with some of the top athletes that are currently training for the Olympics at the moment. And I teach how to have the mindset influence to speak up, be heard, and unlock your highest level of impact. So with the folks that I work with one-on-one, I'm really shoulder to shoulder with them, typically every other week. I was meeting with them in person. That's taken a pause, but hopefully that'll be coming up in the future as well. And then also I work with their teams to make sure that their teams are supported with the mindset and understanding how to have the influence and how to be sustainable high performers. And then with this digital curriculum, it's the same thing, honestly, that their leaders are getting, but it's just a way to scale and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Everyone from, the emerging leaders all the way on up, that they can have access to this curriculum as well.
Incredible. So you're literally writing the book. You've got the curriculum. You're changing the world. You're helping to create high performers with mental toughness, which I think is a critical element, especially like you mentioned earlier. We're just getting past one of the most profoundly difficult moments in human history, a collective experience across the planet with shutdowns, lockdowns, limited travel. The world came to a screeching halt. And for those high performers and those without perhaps mental toughness, it's more important to help develop that skill than ever, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say definitely, for sure. That's why I've been passionate about not just working with high level leaders, but also working for our next generation of leaders, because they're coming in right behind us. And so this system is really called the limitless leader. And so, because a lot of people, based on what a lot of people aren't even aware of, is that based on past trauma, past experiences, past things that have happened to them, they bring that with them into the current day. So for example, as a very long time ago, let's say when I was around 10, I was going to a small private school. I was told I wasn't good enough to be in that school. And even though I was working hard and doing all the things, but I was told I wasn't good enough. A lot of times when we are told something at a very impressionable age, it creates our reality and it holds us back from things in the future. And I will tell you that, my parents were in that meeting. They didn't stick up for me. And one thing that I will also tell you is that I did all the things and I was still asked to leave the school. And I used to think that, why I do this is all because of my father, who said, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. But ultimately it was because of my mother. My mother didn't have a voice in that meeting. She did not have a voice in our home because we weren't allowed to talk during the news, as strange as that was. And she didn't have a voice, and I'll tell you what this has to do with anything, but she did not have a voice when she was very passionate about 3 endangered species of owls. And shortly after she passed away, way too early at 69, 3 months later, those 3 species of owls went extinct. And so the reason why I share this with you is because I believe that everyone here who is a heart-centered leader, their voice matters. And everyone has something very special placed within them. So my job is not necessarily to teach business strategy or tactics. It's really to help people tap into their leadership so they can truly be limitless leaders, confront, so they can do away with fear and doubt. And that's why I believe in the goodness of everyone. And, fear-based leadership is not going to work anymore. I really believe that. And so I think it's going to be incredibly, incredibly important. Like going back to what I said before about leadership being love-based. That means I really do feel, and we talked about this a little bit before, but the future for the United States, for companies in the United States, is going to depend on a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace, because the rules that people were allowed to kind of get away with that sustained us, that sustained growth and profitability, those rules aren't going to work anymore until we learn how to love better and how to be more courageous and do what's right.
Incredible perspective, and thank you so much for sharing, the anecdotal stories, especially about your mom. It's just incredibly powerful, and I think another example of empowerment that's so necessary, obviously. And so I'd like to pivot for a moment, Cheryl, to see if we can chat a bit about your work as the CEO of the Zone Lab. So you're the CEO, you're leading up the charge, you're doing so much. Can you share with our global audience a challenge that you've encountered and how you overcame it?
I was afraid you were going to ask that question. There are a few, so I'll share two with you if you don't mind. The first one is, like I mentioned before, the fear of not being good enough. And I had spent about 20 plus years helping the best get better, flying around the world, coaching some of the best business professionals and also athletes, training for the Olympics, and then showing up with them and helping them perform under pressure. But I actually never given myself permission to be the best. And so that not being good enough, it still sits in the room with me. And so that's why I'm extra passionate about teaching this, because it sits in the room, but it hasn't held me back. But that is one barrier that I really hid behind. I've studied this. I'm going to teach the best of the best to get better quicker and how to perform under pressure. But it really was a barrier to me being the best and helping more people. So I would say got past that about 6 years ago, and I've gone from working with 10 folks a year to impacting over 10,000. So that was definitely a challenge that had to be reckoned with. And then the other barrier I would say is how to manage explosive growth, because that's what we're seeing now. I'm having requests from companies and teams and organizations that are, I don't want to say forcing me to go to scale in a negative way, because it's an amazing way, but just saying, why, yes, I can, and then figuring it out. So getting the business tactics and strategies in place so I can over deliver, that's definitely another challenge, and I'll let you know how it goes. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's certainly a positive challenge to scale and grow bigger, faster, right? It's super exciting, especially when you think about the impact that you're having. I'd like to ask you a follow-up to that, though. I find it incredibly inspiring to think that you're able to help folks that maybe at some point in their life where it's all, you can't do it, you're not good enough, etc. What is one nugget of advice that you would give to people watching this broadcast globally that they can take and say, you know what, I was held back by this, but now I can use this tactic to move forward?
Well, I'd like to, I'm glad you asked that question, and I'd like to respond with the question, if you don't mind. So for everyone watching, I would like everyone to think about if they're in a space in their life where they're feeling a little uncomfortable, a little bit like they could do more, they could speak up more, they could maybe go for that promotion, maybe pivot. So either do more or different, not saying that you're not doing enough, but a lot of times when we have that uncomfortable feeling, it means that we are being called for more or called for different. So I would like everyone watching to think about that, because if so, you are being called, you're being called for more or different. And it's just a matter of getting the clarity and the courage and mobilizing some allies that can help you, that you are good enough. So the challenge is to take the first step, and also, if you want a resource to help with that, just out of gratitude for Ideagen having me on, I have something called the Success Blueprint. There's a short video explaining it, and it's just all about how to create that next step for you, that step where honestly the world needs to see now more than ever. So that's just at SherylKline.com/Ideagen in lowercase letters.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So for our viewers, they can go to that site and have the blueprint available, Cheryl. And my gosh, as we look now toward 2030, just a few short months ago in 2020, we were looking at that runway to 2030, that decade, that last decade to 2030, where we're hopeful we can achieve the global goals by 2030. Those 17 global goals that were agreed to unanimously by all 193 member states of the United Nations. And I'll say it again, agreed to unanimously by all 193 member states of the United Nations, which for many if you think about a body like the United Nations, to get agreement, unanimous agreement, is as close to difficult or even impossible as you could imagine, and yet it happened. And so as we talk about these global goals like eradicating poverty, hunger, empowering women and girls, global partnerships, cleaner seas and oceans, and all the rest of the incredible goals, what are you and your partners doing to help achieve those goals, Cheryl? And what is your perspective on that?
Well, I'm really glad you asked that question. And I remember holding SDG gold block because I remember you had them when I was a moderator at Women in Cloud up at Microsoft. And they're all so vital. And I want to first congratulate you on the buy-in and all of the incredible work that you're doing at Ideagen. Here at the Zone Lab, we are focused on Sustainable Development Goal number 5, empowering women and girls. I want to make a special mention of especially women who are further marginalized within our gender, because that is a very real issue. And it's, it's not just for those individuals, and hear me out for a second, because every individual deserves to, to speak up and be heard and have the impact that they're capable of. But it's also for others that come behind them. And if others can imagine that this is really great for everyone, for women and girls, especially those who sit on the margins, because if you can tap into how they have felt over the last years and decades and turn that into a superpower, that's when you're going to see impact, profitability, and all sorts of great things go through the roof. So Sustainable Development Goal number 5, that's what we're focused on. Incredible.
And you're helping to bring out those superpowers in so many individuals across the planet, which is equally incredible. It's profound, and again, it's awe-inspiring. And so if I were to ask you, as we look toward this post-pandemic world, we look out the window and we say, we see this post-pandemic world. What are some of your goals? You're helping so many others, but what are your goals for this year and beyond, Cheryl, as we emerge from this pandemic?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question. It's a fluid situation, but one thing that we are really focused on by the end of the year, like I mentioned, the Limitless Leader system and digital curriculum will impact over 10,000 women. And it's starting to pick up steam with corporate partnerships, 1-for-1. So that'll double that number. So I'm really excited to get this curriculum and system out to folks who might never pay for it, as well as really transforming not just senior leaders, which is important, but also transforming entire organizations. So really looking forward to that. That's in the works. And by the end of the year, we're already seeing amazing progress with that. And then the other thing I would say is by the end of the year, I will have rounded up and really identified the women who are going to attend what's called the Limitless Leader Summit, because all of these amazing, I work primarily with female leaders and a few good men, I like to say, but we're going to bring them together in a summit early in 2022. And those are all the folks that I've been working with one-on-one. So I'm very intimately involved in what their strengths are, what their passions are, what their missions are. And I just think it'll be incredibly powerful for their companies and the planet to bring them into one place. So I look forward to launching that next year.
Incredible. Just building that community and changing the world is not easy. And you've changed so many lives and inspired and really equipped so many people, so many leaders to get to that next level. And so as we conclude this interview, I'd like to ask you a final question, which is, who has been that person, that mentor, that individual that has inspired you, that has helped you realize your full potential?
Well, I would say hopefully I have a pass to mention more than one person. I would say first and foremost, just to share a unique perspective, that I would say my principal of my school, Mrs. Harris, not that there's any hard feelings, but the one that dismissed me from my private school, I really want to honor her and send some appreciation to her, because without her, it probably wouldn't have propelled my curiosity into thinking who gets to decide who's good enough. And it wouldn't have really transformed me into being a fierce fighter for other people's dreams. So I want to thank her. Of course, my dad said, if you ever put your mind, whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve it. Of course, him, of course, my mom, tremendously inspired by my mom, and as well as one of my most important mentors, that I've had up to this point, and that's Mel Abraham, because there needs to be people in front of us that are kind of shining a light and showing the way.
Shining a light and showing the way. I think that's exactly, Cheryl, what you are doing. And I think our global audience today is no doubt, again, inspired by your perspective, by your vantage point, and by your leadership. I mean, this is true global leadership as it's defined. And I'd like to ask you, if folks would like to find out more, which I'm sure they will, about what you're doing and how you can help them in their leadership journey, how can they find out more about you, the Zone Lab, Limitless Leadership, and all of the projects you're working on?
Thanks for asking, George. I think the best way, like I mentioned, I created a custom link just for the folks that are attending your summit, and they will have the opportunity to schedule a brief call with me if they have any questions. And more so, just to give some tools and resources. It's called a Success Builder Blueprint, along with a video how to fill it out. So if you want to gain some clarity on how world-class performers such as yourselves and everybody looking, but how to plan out the next 12 months or so, and how to plan with the end in mind, and how to be world-class, especially how to shift and up level and skill up during this time of disruption, because there's never been a perfect time. When everyone else is just surviving, this tool will help you thrive, and it's needed now more than ever. So you can just go to my website, which is Sheryl Kline, SHERYLKLINE / in lowercase letters.
Incredible. Sheryl Kline, changing the world. Thank you for your friendship. And really, most importantly, thank you for every single thing that you're doing each and every day to help empower and equip leaders across the planet.
Thanks, George, for having me. It's been a real honor.
It's our honor, Cheryl. Thank you.